Chapter 4. How Everything Began. One more day, the sun painted with its golden light the long range of mountains rising along the Peruvian coast until it tenderly touched the cold gray water of the Pacific Ocean. The snow-covered peaks of the Andes, with their majestic beauty that inspired challengers, sportsmen, and adventurers, and that fed the imagination of poets and dreamers, placidly overlooked the cradle of the mysterious Inca civilization in the distance. Amongst mountains, arid deserts, and the seaside, the city of Lima, centenary capital of Peru, founded in 1535 by the legendary Spanish conqueror Don Francisco Pizarro, rises peaceful and quiet with its plain houses and few buildings, in a typical configuration of the first years of the 50s. However, in this calm, cozy scenery, not everything is as romantic as it seems. The operating theater of a big hospital is the stage of a hectic scene. Doctors and nurses fight desperately to save the life of a young man rushed in hurriedly. He had been seriously wounded in a violent motorcycle accident while racing, and the young man's survival now depended on the prompt assistance and professional skill of the doctors. The young man that was fighting against death had up to now been daring, handsome, dynamic, and successful with women. If he survived, he had the risk of being comatose for the rest of his life, or of having a sequel that would render him mentally or physically handicapped. Virginia, his mother, a widow who had recently lost her second son in an airplane accident, prayed fervently at Carlos's bedside day and night. Virginia and Rosa, the two remaining younger daughters, tried to console her. Firm, obstinate, and with an iron will, their mother did not give in to despair. But unfortunately, chances were slim for total recovery. It would be a miracle. However, something had to be done. So, with unshakable faith, Mother Virginia went to the best specialist at the time and begged him to help her. Moved by the woman's despair, the doctor accepted the case. Slow, painful hours of surgery and 3 long months in a coma accomplished what had seemed impossible. Little by little, a dead man returned to the world of the living. Although he was slowly recovering his consciousness, damage was apparent in an uncomfortably disturbing amnesia, in the painful scars that crisscrossed his skull, and in the squint he shyly hid behind heavy glasses. Several painful, long surgeries had been necessary to correct his injuries. The expenses incurred by the accident and its consequences cost him a fortune, but his promising motorcycle business covered the high expenses of the months in hospital. When he recovered, a new life awaited him, quite different from the one he used to lead as the center of attention at parties and among friends, a busy, vain life. Now he hid at home, far from everything, weakened, withdrawn, and shy because of his deplorable condition. Carlos was not the same anymore. From an arrogant, irresponsible, worldly young man, he became a different, strange person, not only to his family, but to the few friends that remained as well. His physical appearance was not the only alteration undergone by the young motorcyclist. His behavior also underwent a complete transformation. Months after the accident, a young man keenly interested in the secrets of his inner self, in the true meaning of life, and in spirituality, took his first steps. Like a creature just born to a new world, he devoured everything within reach. He listened like an astonished spectator to a new discovery, read greedily and discussed vehemently. He began to broaden his horizons in a way he never had dreamed of. Now other values directed his life. Around 1953, his keen desire to absorb more information led him to the well-known Peruvian Association of Astronomy. After a short time, he became its secretary and treasurer. His surprises did not come only from science in that year. Love conquered his heart, and he married Rose Marie, an old devoted friend who helped him in his worst moments, and who some years later would give him 3 children. The first one, Carlos, best known as Charlie, who is writing this book, then Sixto and Rose Marie. It was during that period, when Carlos was beginning his family life, that he first heard the news of the official investigation by the government of the United States of America of UFOs, unidentified flying objects. The subject fascinated him so much that he proposed to the Peruvian Association of Astronomy that they should dedicate part of their time to the investigation of this new, fascinating phenomenon. The answer was a prompt no. The majority of members in the association were scientists, and at that time, the thought of life beyond Earth was considered science fiction, created by mad novelists, obviously totally out of their paradigms. In spite of that, Carlos was not deterred. He broke off relations with the Peruvian Association of Astronomy, where he did not find a favorable environment to develop what had become his fundamental objective, to prove that intelligent beings from outer worlds visited us, and founded the Peruvian Institute of Interplanetary Relations on January 31st, 1955. That young man was very bold and irreverent for his time. The name of the institute was quite arrogant and a direct insult to those who did not believe in the truth of the phenomenon and the speculations aroused by the subject. However, even he did not suspect the prophetic meaning of the name he had chosen. Jose Carlos Paz Garcia Corochano, Peruvian born in Lima, had just started an endless adventure, and without suspecting it, he had become a prophet and a visionary. He was ushered towards the solution of an enigma that would become almost an obsession throughout his life. The thought of meeting intelligent creatures from somewhere in the immense cosmic ocean simply thrilled him. He had to discover the truth. He had to seek more information, look for evidence from people, and be prepared to be part of that fantastic adventure himself someday. He would spend years and years and sacrifice anything to undertake this strange, bold enterprise. It was not long before the world and other researchers understood his dedication and seriousness. His prestige grew, and he gave innumerable talks at national and international events. Many international organizations made him a member or representative. At present, the IPRI is associated with the International Federation of Astronautics, head office in Paris, as a voting member. He also belongs to the Intercontinental UFO Research and Analytic Network, IUF4 of New York, where he represents South America. He is a member of the Frente de Investigadores do Brasil and of the Latin American Society of Parapsychology in Buenos Aires. Today, Carlos is also Vice President of the Pan American Federation of Scientific and Philosophical Studies on Extraterrestrial Life, whose head office is in Buenos Aires. He is a collaborator of many specialized magazines and is often required to give interviews. Among his most famous friends is Professor Wernher von Braun, inventor of the rocket Saturn used by NASA in its Project Apollo. From this friendship came the support and incentive to continue the research and forge ahead, even with the miscomprehension of the uninformed and skeptical. In the course of this difficult road, many people approached him, among them someone who would be the center of an incredible, limitless adventure. Around 1969, Carlos and his wife went to a diplomatic reception in honor of a friend, a Dominican diplomat, who told them of a queer, frightening experience. He was driving on a road in the Dominican Republic when he encountered a bright light that blinded him. A few moments later, the car had stopped. Everything had gone off without any cause. He noticed that behind that light, and not very far away, there was a large disc-shaped object. When the intensity of the light dimmed, he saw two humanoid creatures approaching the vehicle silently. Their resemblance to humans was perfect, only their clothes revealed something different. Speaking good, fluent Spanish, they asked him to calm down, saying they meant no harm and that they came from Ganymede, the biggest natural moon of Jupiter. He did not quite understand what was happening, but entered the spaceship upon their invitation. He stayed for several hours. Inside, he exchanged some dialogue with the crew and underwent some medical examinations. And finally, at the end of the experience, he went back to his car, immediately started the engine, and headed to the safety of his home, terribly upset and puzzled by what had happened. That same year, a member of the Institute, whom Carlos trusted and considered a friend, took the details of that episode and other similar information, and later, under a pen name, he published a book in which he wrote about his extraordinary experiences on Ganymede, which obviously never occurred, and his contacts with those beings. Although the book contained only half-truths, it was a sales success and created in some credulous readers false expectations and an incorrect idea of these extraterrestrial civilization. The launching of the book in Lima in 1972 and later in other Latin American countries set off a polemic in the circles of extraterrestrial research, in the media, and in public opinion. Some people even thought Carlos was the author. In general, he was invited to explain and give his opinion on such a controversial publication. Carlos gave dozens of talks at that time, and beside him, always, keeping him company, were his two sons, Sixto and myself, Charlie. We knew a lot about the subject and were very enthusiastic. The talks continued until 1973, when we had an invitation from the International Society of Divine Realization, Sociedad Internacional de Realización Divina, or SERD, an Oriental entity that spread the teachings of Swami Devanand Maharaj. Its representative in Peru, Mrs. Silvia Rivera de Marmoniado, had asked for a talk and comments on the book. After his brilliant speech, Carlos was surrounded by interested people, while Sixto and I, both very impressed, had a conversation with Mrs. Silvia about the origin of SERD and the kind of studies developed by the entity. When she observed our great curiosity, the hostess asked if we would like to take part in the activities of the society, attend the talks, and the yoga and meditation courses. Our answer was prompt and affirmative. Back home, we told our father Carlos of the conversation we had had with Mrs. Silvia, the offer she had made us, and our desire to participate. A little apprehensive, we asked him if he had anything against it. We were both thrilled and deeply interested, and could hardly conceal our enthusiasm. He could see in our eyes that flame he had already experienced inside himself in the past, the flame that had led him such a long way in search of the unknown, which had undoubtedly found an extension in us, his sons. Both of us had inherited his interest in UFOs and also the same curiosity for the new and unknown. So not only did we get his permission to attend the SERD, but his encouragement as well. While my father, our ex-race car driver, developed his research and activities in ufology, Sixto and I started a new stage of learning. A different, rigid process would be part of our daily routine now. Yoga exercises, vegetarian food, meditation, relaxation, reading, and research had become our sports and occupied our time completely, but we never forgot or lost our passion for the subject of extraterrestrials. However, over the next few months, university classes, various sports activities at the Peruvian Federation of Olympic Gymnastics, along with a good dose of laziness, made me abandon the SERD. Sixto, on the contrary, became an assiduous participant and diligent student. His mystical tendencies and great spirituality had found the best place to flourish. We were at the end of 1973. Activities went on normally at the Institute. Talks, courses, and seminars still attracted our attention, and we were always ready to participate. During that period, my father put me in charge of a parapsychology course, a science that studies and investigates extrasensory phenomena, ESP. That activity, based on the theories of Dr. Charles Rickett, professor at Sorbonne in Paris and Nobel Prize winner in medicine, would bring an unsuspected collaboration in the future. Out of all the ESP phenomena researched by parapsychology, telepathy, also called thought transmission or mental communication at distance, investigated in depth by Professor Joseph Banks Rhine from the University of North Carolina, USA, would be one to which I would dedicate most of my time and attention. It would soon become a work tool of limitless extension. The end-of-year holidays were approaching. With some friends, we were planning new excursions to the caves in the Andes and to complete the adventure to some Incan cemeteries and constructions unknown to the public and archaeologists. None of us could ever have imagined that the event that would soon occur in our family would be responsible for the transformation of the life of hundreds of people all through the world. For they would write a new page in the history of humanity and international extraterrestrial phenomena. These events would set the beginning of a new, wonderful journey in the search for man's cosmic identity towards the knowledge of the meaning of life. It was as if everything was already established and the first steps were about to be taken. Soon the prophetic vision that inspired the name of the research facility created by Carlos, my father, would accomplish its destiny so long awaited.